Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're diving into Donna Haraway's A Cyborg Manifesto today. You're interested in epistemology, so get ready because we're going to see how Haraway uses the cyborg, part human, part machine, to really shake things up when it comes to how we think about knowledge in this tech-heavy world we live in.
Yeah, the Cyborg Manifesto, it's really something. It captures that late 20th century vibe, all that anxiety, all that potential, and all those new technologies popping up. People were trying to wrap their heads around computers, biotechnology, the lines between human and technology blurring, and Haraway just jumped right into the mix.
I can already tell this is going to be good, but let's back up a bit. Cyborgs, as in Terminator, RoboCop? Is that what she's getting at? Are we all going to be part machine?
It's not that literal. Think of the cyborg more as a metaphor, a new way of looking at how technology is changing what it means to be human. Haraway's point is that technology is already a part of us, woven into our bodies, our minds, the way we understand the world.
So it's less about nuts and bolts, more about how tech shapes our understanding of ourselves and the world. Which brings us back to epistemology.
Exactly. Our ways of knowing, the categories we use to order the world, those are being challenged by technology. Think about those classic dualisms. Male-female, nature-culture, mind-body. Haraway argues those aren't set in stone. They're always being redefined by technology.
So she's saying the foundation of how we understand the world is up for grabs. How does that even work? What's an example of technology messing with these categories?
Well, take in vitro fertilization, for example. It was emerging when Haraway was writing, and it really shook up ideas about reproduction and family. It blurred the lines of what's considered natural when it came to having children.
That's a perfect example. In vitro fertilization challenges our assumptions about family and even what we define as natural versus artificial. You mentioned Haraway's focus on dualisms. How does that fit into all of this?
It's a big part of her argument. Those dualisms, those binary ways of thinking, they don't cut it anymore in our tech-driven world. Especially with feminist ideals coming into play, technology has the potential to smash those old categories and create something new, something more fluid, more inclusive.
So instead of clinging to rigid categories, she wants us to embrace the gray areas, the spaces where those categories break down. Now I'm seeing why the cyborg is such a powerful image for her.
Right, and she doesn't just look at the upsides. She talks about the informatics of domination, how technology can create power imbalances and control, often making existing inequalities even worse. It's not all good.
So technology isn't a magical solution.
Not at all. Think about the rise of the homework economy, something she uses as an example.
Homework economy, what is that?
Well, back then, more and more work, particularly work traditionally done by women, was becoming decentralized. People relied on tech, like telephones, fax machines, even early computers. On the surface, it seemed great, right? You have flexibility, you can work from home, but really, it often meant longer hours, worse pay, and the line between work and personal life disappearing. Basically, like today's gig economy, but a few decades earlier.
It's amazing how those patterns repeat themselves. It's like technology promises flexibility but can end up exploiting workers, something we're still dealing with today.
It's like we're hardwired to repeat those same mistakes, even with new tech. And that's where Haraway's focus on women of color really stands out. They're often caught in the middle of these tech shifts, feeling both the good and the bad more intensely.
That makes sense. We were talking about how technology reshapes categories. How does that connect to what women of color experience?
Well, Haraway argues that women of color, because they're living at the intersection of all these different identities, they actually embody the cyborg experience in a really powerful way. Think about it. They're constantly navigating spaces where categories like race, gender, class are being challenged and redefined.
They don't fit neatly into those boxes society tries to put them in.
Exactly. And a lot of times they're the ones pushing the boundaries with technology, creating new communities, finding ways to resist. Haraway, she was really inspired by writers like Sherry Moraga and Audre Lorde. They used language in such a powerful way to challenge the usual narratives, to make space for voices that are usually silenced.
So it's not just about technology happening to them. They're shaping it, using it to create something new. It's pretty inspiring when you think about how technology can also be used to silence people.
Absolutely. It's about taking control, using tech to tell your story, connect with people, fight for what's right. Haraway, she wanted us to embrace the monstrous potential of the cyborg instead of shying away from it.
Monstrous potential. We might need to unpack that a little. What does she even mean by that?
It's about questioning everything we think we know about what's normal, what's acceptable, what it means to be human. The cyborg, That mix of flesh and machine, it shakes up those comfy categories. It makes us confront the messy reality of living in a world totally intertwined with technology.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah.
It's about embracing all of it, even the contradictions, the parts of ourselves that don't fit those neat little boxes, seeing the monstrous as a strength, even a way to break free.
That's it. And that's where her critique of traditional epistemology comes in. Haraway wants us to question how we know what we know, to break down those old ways of thinking, and to be open to new, more inclusive ways of seeing the world.
So how do we actually do that? How do we move past those old ways of thinking and embrace this more cyborg perspective?
Well, Haraway doesn't give us all the answers, but she encourages us to look to the people who are already living on the margins, those who've been excluded. They have a lot to teach us.
Like we were saying before about technology being used for good or for bad. How do we make sure tech is used to make a more just and equal world? How do we make sure it doesn't just make inequality worse?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something Haraway thought a lot about. I think it starts with being really aware of who's designing the tech, whose voices are being included, whose experiences are being prioritized.
It's like we need a whole new set of guidelines for thinking about tech ethically.
Yeah, it's not enough to just invent new gadgets. We have to think about the impact they have on people's lives.
You mentioned earlier that Haraway wants us to deconstruct those old hierarchies of knowledge. What does that actually look like? Give me some specifics.
Well, for starters, we have to remember that knowledge isn't this neutral thing. It's always connected to power, who has it, who gets to decide what's true. It's about asking who's being listened to, whose stories are being told, whose experiences matter. Haraway wants us to look beyond those traditional sources of knowledge, like universities, governments, even the media.
So instead of just accepting what we're told, we need to be more critical, look for alternative perspectives, especially from communities that are often ignored.
Exactly. Haraway wants us to recognize that there are many ways of knowing, many truths even, and those truths are often tangled up with power and privilege. It's about being open to different ways of understanding the world.
This all ties back to her big idea, right?
Right.
The cyborg, this blend of human and machine. It's a powerful symbol for breaking down those old ways of thinking and creating something completely new.
You got it. It's recognizing that, in a way, we're all cyborgs already, shaped by our interactions with technology. And instead of being afraid of that, we can see it as a chance to break free, to go beyond limitations and create a more just world.
She really leaves us with a lot to chew on. It's not just a theory, it's a call to action.
It really is. Haraway's work isn't about giving you the answers on a silver platter. It's about asking those hard questions, challenging what we think we know, making us think differently about ourselves, technology, and our place in the world.
You said it before, she's asking us to embrace the monstrous potential of the cyborg. I think that's what really stays with me. It's like a challenge to get out of our comfort zones, to embrace the unknown, the messy, the ever-changing world of technology.
It is, and to do it with a sense of hope, believing that we can make a difference, and working towards a future where tech empowers people instead of controlling them.
Well said. So, to everyone listening, we'll leave you with this final thought from Donna Haraway. I would rather be a cyborg than a goddess. What does that mean to you as we navigate this increasingly complex and technological world?